Anush, why don't you show us what Krista can do in Splunk with that data and how she investigates such events?
Sure, yeah. Let us now see how Krista responds to the alert and how she uses Splunk to analyze and investigate the threat. Like Tamar said, Krista has already integrated all of the Fabric SaaS application logs to get into Splunk. So she gets into the Acme Corp Splunk instance. She lands on the AppFabric overview dashboard. On the very left, you see all the different SaaS applications that are sending logs to Splunk. This all comes through Firehose, so they're all real time. Next, she looks at the alerts panel where there's a couple of alerts. One of them is the assigned privilege alert that she actually got notified for from Slack. She then looks at her KPI panels. These KPIs are based out of OCSF categories and event classes. She sees that they are trending. The Identity and Access Management OCSF category KPI gathers information about system authentication and access control models. The Group Management event class within the same category generates events such as add user, remove user, configuration changes, or app permission changes. The Application Activity KPIs is another OCSF category that generates events about web applications and services. The Web Resource Activity event class within the same category generates events like create, delete, update across different applications. These KPIs are customizable, and Krista has set these threshold values based on the daily usage or the events that she's seen on any given day. So she understands that there is some unusual activity within her environment today. She scrolls down and gets to the traffic by application and vendors. There she notices that about 95% of the traffic is being generated by a single application, in this case, Zoom. That makes her curious. She wants to look at the event timeline by application. So she navigates to the activities event timeline by application and chooses Zoom. She sees results similar to her KPIs. It looks like there's multiple add users, create and delete rules, and update configuration changes that's happened within Zoom. She looks at the timeline, and she quickly notes in her notebook the specific timeline when these events start to occur. She's now interested to look at activity chart by actors. While she goes over there, she also notices that nearly 75% of the traffic is being generated by 2 users. By the overlay line, by the cumulative percentage overview line on the Pareto chart. She's also surprised to see that about 54% of traffic is generated by a single user. She hovers over the bar and notices quickly that it is being generated by Johnny Hooker, whose email domain does not match with the company domain. She's suspicious of this, and she drills right into the chart. She sees a timeline of events. It looks like Johnny has triggered multiple events over the course of past few hours. This seems unusual. She's interested in looking at the events by activity name. Activity name is another field within the OCSF event class of web resource activity event class. So she chooses to just interact by point and click, selects the top values by time, and gets to a time chart query. Within Splunk, it's called a time chart query, and looks at all the different activities by Johnny. This seems to match with her KPIs as well. She sees, again, the same add user, create, delete roles, among other configuration changes. She dives deeper into some of the events. For instance, the add user. It looks like there's been multiple group admins added and roles added within Zoom in the past few hours, and a couple of update configuration changes, like for instance this one, where Johnny has actually gotten into Dropbox and changed files and folders, share permissions outside of the team. All of this looks suspicious to Krista. She also notices the timeline of these events. She quickly jumps back to her overview dashboard, wants to take a look at the alert that she actually was notified about, which is the assigned privileges alert. The assigned privileges alert event is basically showing us that Johnny has used Slack to change his role to admin. Now, this seems, Krista is suspicious about this because Johnny's email does not match with the company domain, so she's not sure how Johnny gained access into the systems and kind of bumped his privileges by himself. At this point, she's sort of officially concerned. So she quickly jumps onto a Splunk search window and writes a flawless query. This is to search across all access management logs across all applications. And within like a millisecond or so, she obviously sees the result here, and she notices that Johnny has actually gained access through Henry, who already has an email address through the company. So he's an employee of the company, but Henry has somehow provided Johnny access to some of those applications. This is a more detailed event of what actually happened. It seems like either Johnny impersonated Henry or Henry gave Johnny access to Slack and to Dropbox in this case and changed the admin role. And this has occurred exactly a few minutes before 10 a.m. She takes down a note of his email address, the session UID, and the user IDs. Now in her mind, she's trying to stitch together the events, and it looks like Johnny came into the system through Henry using Dropbox, jumped onto Slack, changed the admin privileges, and then started generating a list of events like adding users, removing configuration, updating configurations within Zoom. Now Krista feels like she's figured out what the problem is. She breathes a quick relief. She collects her thoughts together. She tries to put this all in a notebook. Now she wants to take actions, and she can take any automated mitigation actions through Splunk.
Awesome.